Introducing health and wellness advocate, veteran international real estate investment expert, author and speaker, Adiel Gorel.
Health tips, fitness tips, nutrition and well-being, world-class experts, all right here on my podcast, The Adiel Gorel Show. We are very fortunate to have a Pandit Dasa with us today. And thank you so much for joining us. Pandit Dasa is a mindful leadership expert, author, and motivational keynote speakers. His international speeches aim to create a more mindful workplace culture, which increases productivity and improves retention. He emphasizes the importance of leading without ego and highlights the importance of cultivating self-awareness and personal growth and development. Pandit captures the audience's attention by sharing his journey on how and why he spent 15 years living as a monk in New York City, the incredible life and leadership lessons he learned from that experience, and why he's no longer a monk. His story is chronicled in his first book, The Urban Monk. Pandit has spoken to many Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 companies. Some of the many organizations that he has spoken to are Google, Citibank, IBM, State Farm, Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, Bank of America, and countless other such organizations. In Pandit's latest book, Closing the Apps, on how to be mindful at work and at home, has just been released. And of course, I already have it, and I already read it. The book is already stirring up a conversation given its timeliness and the use of the apps metaphor for our mind. The relevance of mindfulness and its impact on our mental health when compared to the perpetual digital distraction has been pushed to the forefront of a global conversation. So I believe we're very fortunate to have this kind of knowledge and help that we can use. So without further ado, Pandit, your incredible life paths, in itself is already a great, valuable teaching tool. Can you briefly share with us your life path and how you got to the incredible place that you are now?
Well, Adiel, thank you so much. And first of all, I'm really grateful to be here and thank you for having me. And I'm delighted to be able to have a conversation about just all of what's going on in our society, and sort of also thank you for giving me an opportunity to share my own story. So how I got to where I am, so my parents came to the US in 1980 from India. They came over basically looking for, economic stability and success, wanting to live the American dream. And they didn't come over with much money. So one of the first things they did was they set up a small shop on Venice Beach, California. For those who know where Venice Beach is, it's a very interesting part. It doesn't look like any other part of America. So they set up a small shop there, just selling gift items, very humble, simple beginnings. And I was 7 years old. This is in the early 80s, and I'm just exploring everything Venice Beach has to offer, running around the beach, basketball, and the beach and pizza and the music and all of these things, And so, but they were working 7 days a week, actually, my parents. They didn't have a day off. There was no such thing for them because each day meant food on the table. And so within a matter of about 7 years, there were, with a lot of hard work and of course, luck. I think we can't ignore luck, karma, whatever you want to call it. They established a multi-million-dollar jewelry business actually in Los Angeles. Very, very successful business. We began living that American dream within 7 years of being in the country, living in this huge house on the hills of LA with a pool, jacuzzi, waterfall, like the whole thing, right? But within, just as life has it, things come and go. And I had a chance to experience a lot of comings and goings. Within about 6 years after that, my parents' jewelry factory burnt down. They lost the whole business. We went completely broke. And at that point, my dad decides to explore new business opportunities, trying to figure out really what to do. He flies off to post-communist Bulgaria in 1992 because it was coming out of the USSR. And so then we packed up our bags and left LA for good. Just left our life. Moved to Bulgaria, went from living in this 6-bedroom house on the hills to a 1-bedroom apartment in post-communist Bulgaria, a country in which you could hardly find anyone that would speak English. Like really no one could speak English. Everything on TV was either in Bulgarian or Russian. All the movies were years old because I don't think American movies were allowed. I couldn't find any basketball courts. All the things I did, like basketball, tennis, volleyball, beach, and none of it was available. Video games, everything, right? So and then of course, one big thing, I don't know if people can imagine what the pandemic would be like if we didn't have internet. I didn't have internet. There was no internet at that time, just to keep that in mind. So my entire social recreational life had literally just somebody had like put the brakes on and it stopped overnight in a place where I can't even speak the language with someone else, right?
And you were a teenager.
I was 21 at this time.
Oh, 21.
Yeah, just got out of the teenage years. So happy 21 for me. But you know, I guess this was a very transformative time for me because when all of my externals were taken away, everything that we used to distract ourselves or everything for recreation and fun, I had nowhere to turn. And it was a very difficult time for me because I was asking myself the question that I think we all ask ourselves is, why is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this? It's a question we've all asked at some point in our life or another, maybe multiple times. And I was asking myself that all the time. And so when I had no answers, I had to look inward. I began my inward journey because I'm like, there's no answers out there. There's no one even speaks English to give me any answers. So I had to look inward. And I started to meditate. I mean, I was familiar with meditation because my parents had done it. So I started doing that, started reading some books on wisdom from India, and just started to explore, like, why did this happen? What's my purpose here? How should I understand the upheavals that I've just been through? How do I not let this make me negative and bitter and just angry at everyone, you know, around? How do I stop it from me blaming the whole universe and God and my parents and everything? So that journey inward really helped me stay focused and calm and sort of accept what was happening and not get bitter about it. We spent a couple years in Bulgaria. It was a very unstable environment. Moved back to the US. My parents set up a small shop in New York City. I helped them with that a little. I started working as a loan officer in a mortgage company for a couple of years. In the mid-90s, that was a wild time to do that kind of work. And then in 1999, I just realized that I needed to take a break from life. I'm like, this is too much in the last 8 years, what's happened. I need to figure out what I want to do in life and really even figure out who I am before I figure out what I want to do. I want to figure out who I am, what my purpose is, where am I going? So I thought I'd take a break and go to India and to live in a monastery in Mumbai, India. So I fly off to Mumbai, and there's this monastery in the middle of mayhem. It's Mumbai, right? It makes New York City look like the suburbs. It's got triple the population, basically. And there I am living with 40 other monks. Everybody sleeps on the hardwood floor. No one has their own room. There's no beds. There's no cushions. It's a communal floor. Everybody just looks like next to each other on a hardwood floor with a thin straw mat. We're waking up at 5 and 4 in the morning because the meditation starts at 5 and I don't want to be late. So I'm going with the program, meditating for 2-3 hours a day. The rest of the day was spent serving one another and serving the community. So it was a life of simplicity, humility, and service. To my surprise, I really enjoyed that life. It somehow brought me peace and calm like I'd never experienced before. So I extended my 1-month stay and ended up staying in India for 6 months in a few different monasteries. Came back, moved into a monastery in New York. Thought I'd spend maybe 3 or 6 months. Ended up spending 15 years living as a monk there. During that time, I did a lot of lecturing and teaching at Columbia University on mindfulness, stress management to the students. And I started traveling around the country doing those kind of speeches on different college campuses and philosophy classes and different universities. And then about 6 years ago, at the end of 2014, I felt like I wanted to take what I had already learned in the monastery and throughout my life. And I wanted to take it to a broader audience, to the corporations. And so since the last 6 years, I've been doing motivational speeches on mindful leadership, mindful in the workplace, creating that work-life balance. So that's my whole life story so far in about 8-10 minutes. I don't know.
Well, when you were talking about going to a monastery in Mumbai or in India, in general, because Mumbai is a huge city, I felt it. I could feel. But then when you said I was in a monastery in New York City, not that New York City is bigger, than Mumbai. It's not. It's actually much smaller. But there's still a bit of a dissonance between New York City as we know it, and a monastery. I guess there shouldn't be. But you were in the monastery for 15 years and you did not venture into, the outside world, or it was a blend of the two?
So our monastery in New York City was on the Lower East Side. Okay, and let me just tell you some of the establishments that were right next to us. One immediately right next to us was a tattoo shop. Like if you had enough of meditation and you felt like you wanted to get a big Om on your shoulder or something, you could right there,
Right here.
And the three establishments next to that were bars and nightclubs. Across the street, more bars, nightclubs, and delis and laundromats. That's what I was living in. So, and then of course, because I was doing 3 to 4 public events each week at Columbia University, New York University, or somewhere else, I was in the monastery, but I was also out a lot engaging with the public. Most of the monks weren't doing that actively. It was just, I guess maybe I'm an extrovert. I enjoyed teaching. I enjoyed sharing it with people in general. Maybe that was more my nature. So I was out quite a bit throughout the time that I was there. So in the mornings, I would have my 2 hours of meditation. That was like my grounding. That was like my food for the soul. And that would give me the strength, conviction, determination, inspiration to go out now and share it. Because, you have to, as the airline industry is very nicely say, put your own oxygen mask on first. So that's what I would do. Put my own oxygen mask on first and then take it out and share that oxygen with others.
Especially these days. But yeah, I resonate with it a great deal because you go deep, you go into a place where, and then you integrate it, and it sounds like a great way to do it. I have, a transcendental meditation practice, which I started decades ago, and never mind whether it's the good way to do it or not, but his message is go and meditate and go outside and integrate, meditate and integrate. So it's really, so, in your book, Closing the Apps, very, very compact, easy, great read, love it. You begin by talking about our cluttered thinking. I like the metaphor that we have so many apps that, and I have recently interviewed right here in this forum 3 breathing experts. And one of the things I said after and before those interviews is we like to talk about wellness and strength and eating and diet, but breathing is the most basic function. But now, when I was reading your book, I said, no, breathing is not the most basic one. Thinking is the most basic one. We may take 20 breaths or 10 breaths a minute, it all depends on who we are, but we may have 1,000 thoughts in a minute. That's the most. So wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, I read I think it was in Psychology Today, that an average person has 1,000 to 2,000 thoughts an hour. And I think if we were breathing as much as we were thinking, I think we'd probably end up hyperventilating. And we'd probably get lightheaded and fall over. I mean, for anyone who's tried to close their eyes and empty out their mind, you realize that it takes about all of 3 seconds for another idea, a thought to come in there. and it sits there and you don't even realize it's entered until like a second later. It's like snuck in the door. It's in your house already. And now you realize that it's in. And then you try to get rid of that. As this one goes, another one's just kind of coming right in. So it's happening all the time. Like at night, your breathing slows down. We're not sure if our thinking actually slows down or not, because there's all the stuff we took in throughout the day. The mind is still having to deal with it. Yeah, it's just still processing it. So I have a feeling we're probably having many more thoughts than breaths.
Absolutely. And, at least for me with my TM practice, they say, it's a mantra meditation. They say, the thoughts are in. Don't mind them. Don't resist them. Just gently go back to the mantra. But of course, going back to the mantra by definition means you recognize that they're thoughts, because sometimes these thoughts could come in and it's not even one invader, it's a whole party, they come in and then by the time you recognize that they're there and you want to go back to the mantra, at least, the way that I do it, some time may have passed. But I have a real basic and I think quite important question for you. You said, and I agree with it so much, that we are attracted and we are just really drawn to the negative experiences of our past. So you could have a person that has 99 fantastic experiences, rewarding, loving, successful, and one lousy experience. Why is it that we are like a magnet drawn to the one bad experience and hardly even thinking about all the good experiences?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this and wondering about this myself. Like, what causes us to latch on to the negative and not the positive? I think it's all about training our mind. So we can have either the mind of a fly or the mind of a bumblebee. What does that mean? Let's say there's a beautiful garden, right? And some corner of a garden, there's something dirty. And you can imagine what that might be. Now the fly will ignore the hundreds of roses and bzzz, boom, land on that one dirty thing.
I'm a fly.
I think we're all flies right now. And a bumblebee is going to go to the flower and suck out the sweet nectar. So we have to make a decision. Do we want a fly mind or do we want a bumblebee-like mind? And once we recognize that, okay, first we have to be honest that, yeah, probably my mind is like a fly right now. But can it be trained? Just anything can be trained. Or like a dog, if you get a dog, a puppy, and you don't train it, it's going to mess up your entire house, tear up the pillows, it'll dirty every place in the house. If you train it, it knows what to do. The mind right now just hasn't been trained. And I find it so amazing that we've had parents, we've had teachers, we've had gym teachers, coaches. No one has ever told us to train our mind. That tells us right away, that tells me we are a society out of touch with reality. Like they say, yeah, go work out. Okay, great. Muscles are big. You can run a marathon. Great. But your mind is still like a fly. How good is it for you to be able to run 26 miles when your mind is like a fly? So I'm surprised in our society and culture, we haven't even briefly touched on this. And actually, this is the most important thing. Now, if you have a car, and if you never clean the outside and keep the insides clean, that car will run forever. But what we as a society focus on is make sure you take it to the car wash constantly, but just don't change the oil. That's kind of what we've done with our mind, is that we've made this look good. We've got a six-pack and muscles and everything else, cool shirt, cool glasses, cool haircut. But this is like a garbage dump.
I mean, when you're at the gym, to go back to what you said, here you are, you're doing, the military press. So good, yeah. So good for your shoulders. But while you're doing the military press, what are you thinking? Oh, I shouldn't have told her that. She shouldn't have said, oh my God. Yeah, your mind, you're not really doing, the military press. Yeah. Very good trainers manage to actually quiet for a second and just say, okay, my weightlifting in this, in this example, or my running is my meditation. So I know when I have a heavy weight, if I start thinking extraneous thought, I could hurt myself. So maybe that's an opportunity to shut up the mind for a second. But most of us, oh my God, I shouldn't have done it. I can't believe I didn't do that. I should have, and I could have. And even when you train, even when you eat, it's like, so you talk about gratitude. Seems to me the perfect segue to what we just discussed. So I will be the first one to say, I have the mind of a fly. That's it. The worst kind of fly is the one that glistens and they land right there where they land.
I do want to add one more thing, Adiel, if I can, before we go on to the gratitude part, if you don't mind. So like we talked about how the mind latches onto the negative. You know how all our lives, we can remember every single person who's hurt us, even from our childhood. We can remember, oh, that kid was nasty. He bullied me. He stole my lunch money. He stole my lunch, whatever. We remember that person forever. So the negative, that they may have done some good things too, but we won't remember that because the mind magnifies the negative. So a lesson we can learn from this is really be thoughtful on how we treat others, because we are making an impression in their mind about us that's going to stay there till they die. It's like making an imprint on wet cement. It will stay there. It's just something to think about, whether you're at a job, whether you're in college or school or family. You mistreat someone, you have left an impression in their mind of who you are, and that impression is going to be really hard to undo. We'll remember the good, but we'll always like, yeah, this person was also, that will never go. So just something for us practically to think about. Whenever we do something negative to someone, harmful, hurtful, painful, they will never forget that about us.
That is an amazing way of looking at it. This is a fantastic, because we all want to be good people. We all want to act nicely, but this really is a lens of looking at it. And I think at some point, we probably know in some way deep that it's going to stay with them for a long time. We may feel bad, so it stays with us for a long time also.
Yes, for sure. We carry that around and avoid it, pretend it didn't happen. And then we come up with excuses in our mind where, oh, it wasn't that bad. Oh, the problem was really with them. It wasn't that bad. They're too sensitive. Like we just like all the things we can to take it off of us. Whereas if we just kind of own up to it and say, you know what, I think I'm going to go say sorry. At least now that person will remember that, okay, they did something, but they acknowledged it. And that's a powerful thing. For the soul, it humbles the soul to be able to say sorry.
Could it be that it's a sign of perfectionism? Going back to the numbers example, 99 things went incredibly well. One thing went bad. We strive to be at 100%. So the 1% is what bothers us. Is this the kind of thing?
What do you mean exactly?
So I talked before, we had 99 great experiences.
Yeah.
And one bad one. Mm-hmm. Like laser, we focus only on that. Yeah. Could it be from a, perfectionistic standpoint of wanting to be at perfect, at 100? Is that part of it?
I think that because not everybody has a perfectionist nature. Only some people do. Not everyone is like that, right? And so I don't know if it has to do exactly with that. It could be for those who are perfectionists. I just think that the mind hasn't been trained. It's just been like kind of like I said, a fly. And I think all our influences aren't helping us. Like when we look at leadership today, right? Or anytime, you see important, mature, elderly leaders of the country fighting and bickering like kids on a schoolyard, right? Blaming each other for everything. Now imagine a 12-year-old watching that, right? A 12-year-old said, oh, those are the people who rule this country. Oh, that means you can say and do anything to win. Great. I guess I can do that too. So it's shameful. It's shameful to see people in their 60s and 70s on national television, or not even 60s, any age, talking bad and putting each other down just to win. I think that's just terrible training that we've had. So our mind's been influenced by so much negativity. I I think all of these factors make us just kind of dwell on that negativity over and over again.
But I just want to go there one more time to really get it, because I think this is a key point for everyone here that's going to view this. The mind has not been trained. Yes. Yet, why is it that the default state of the mind, untrained, is latching onto the negative and not to the positive?
I think that may be a really deep philosophical type of a thing to get into, which I don't know if we can get into it that deep and philosophical. But I do think that it's just the sort of the nature of the world that we are living in and conditioned by, to look at the negative, to, you know, again, this is not specifically addressing that, but just like, even when someone does a lot of good, we find the fault in them, right? And it's like there may be a big white sheet of paper, but you look at the one dark spot on it.
Yes, I think that, yeah.
You know, and I think it's unfortunate that that's how our mind has been trained to, like, that it makes the ego, makes us feel good about ourselves when we can criticize someone else. And I think that's an unhealthy state that we're in.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And thank you for that. So yeah, now I talk about gratitude, which you talk about. Isn't that right there a great step in the right direction? Because instead of looking only at the dirty stuff in the yard like a fly, now you express gratitude for all the roses too.
I think that is one of the most important practices we can engage in to start the transformation process of the mind. And if we don't start that process, our whole life is going to be filled with negativity. You know, there's a reason why we are haunted by our past. It's because we let the past attack us over and over again. We haven't taken the time out enough times, like actually sit and think about what we've learned from those negative things. When we take time out to learn, to understand the benefits that we gained in terms of wisdom, knowledge, intelligence, maturity from the painful things from the past, and then we can be grateful that, wow, that painful moment has led me into this new state of life, a new level of maturity. So that kind of gratitude, including the things, positive things that are happening now, can help us overcome the pain of the negative things from our past. Instead of letting it affect us, now it's coming towards us, we catch it, we look at it. Okay, I've learned this, this, and this. Wow, I really needed that. So I guess I'm glad that it happened to me. I don't want it to happen again. But look what there's treasures inside that pain. Let me dig out those treasures. And now it's not going to bother us as much. And now we can be grateful for the painful things in life, because realize it's not a pain. It's not painful. It's painful, but it's actually just an exam. It was just actually a test life gave me. I didn't have the wisdom to understand the jewels and the treasures inside of that pain, but now I need to dissect it. And if we can develop gratitude for the difficult things that have happened to us, then we'll be able to feel grateful for pretty much anything that's coming in our life. Even in the middle of a painful and difficult situation, even if you're going through something in the moment, you'll be like, I can't understand it now, but I know there's a lot of amazing treasures from what I'm going through right now, and I'll discover them in a few weeks or months or years from now. Like Steve Jobs said something really nice. He said, you can only connect the dots looking back. You can't connect the dots looking forward.
I like it. And it seems like if we are grateful and we express and think with gratitude about the obvious stuff, a good night's sleep, a good meal, a good friend, a loving child, maybe that's an easier way to get started, to even be grateful for the harder things, that come our way.
Yeah, I kind of recommend, when I do my workshops and talks, that think of 3 things that you're grateful for from today. What 3 things happened today? You're like, 3 things today? Like, well, just think about it. Did you get your breakfast? You're grateful for that. Did you get a chance to take a shower? Okay, you're grateful for that. Did you have a chance to, sit with your family? Be grateful, not for the big things, because that's pretty easy. Find the small things that we neglect every day and feel grateful for that. I've got running water, like one time, and I believe I might have talked about it in the book, that I was running late for a call, about to get late for a call, and I had just gone grocery shopping. I was trying to stuff everything in the fridge, and I couldn't, and I was like getting so frustrated, like I can't get in now. I got another minute to go for the call, and then all of a sudden I paused. I'm like, this is my problem, that I can't put food inside the fridge because I have so much food. Everything changed. I'm like actually everything literally changed, and I just felt like slightly emotional. I'm like, I have food. My big problem in this moment is I can't put it inside the fridge because there's already so much in there. I'm like, how many people on the planet would absolutely die to be in this situation? So I was like, I'm just grateful that I have food in the fridge. So I think we start by finding little things and then gradually working our way up to bigger things in life. And I think we try to do this on a regular basis.
Thanks for joining me today. Click the subscribe button for more video. Got a question or comment? I love questions and comments. Leave yours below. And here's another video you've got to see.